Wow. Happened. Deji, please make me a co-host. I just dropped off again, so I can start.
Ifunanya, we can hear you. You are on live.
All right. Sorry, my internet just dropped me off. I had to relog in. Apologies. All right. You should be able to see me soon.
We can see
All right.
you.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. And welcome to today's webinar. My name is Hepzibah Ifunanya Obiora, and I'm the moderator for today. All right. The title of our webinar is From Chalkboard to Boardroom, Secure Their Journey with an Education Trust Fund, and it is brought to you by Meristem Trustees Limited. Meristem Trustees Limited is a subsidiary of Meristem Securities Limited, which is a financial services group offering diversified investment solutions to meet the needs of its valued clientele base in Nigeria and abroad. With me are two amazing panelists who will be sharing valuable insights with you today on this particular topic. I have with me Mrs. Yinka Ugunde, who is our first panelist. Mrs. Yinka is the principal consultant at Edumac Consult. Edumac Consult is focused on the transformation of private education sector in Nigeria. She's truly a woman of many parts. She can be described as a seasoned marketing communication professional and entrepreneur with keen interest in the education sector and social transformation. She began her professional life with NTA Enugu as a news reporter before moving to the Broadcasting Corporation of Oyo State in the 1980s. Her sojourn into the world of advertising began after her MSc degree in mass communication at the University of Lagos. Mrs. Yinka is a certified coach, speaker, and trainer with John Maxwell Team, the world's largest leadership outfit, and a member of WIMBIZ, where she serves as a mentor. She's a fellow of Vital Voices, an international organization founded by Hillary Clinton to support female entrepreneurs in developing countries. Mrs. Yinka, you can say hi to the audience so that we can see you.
Thank you very much, Ifunanya, for that introduction. I'm highly delighted and honored to be with you all this morning. I believe that it's a very, very important topic that we will all be talking about. And I hope that we will be able to add value to you and help you make the right decision about the future of your children. Thank you for having me, Meristem.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Yinka. All right, our second panelist for today is Damilola Hassan. Damilola Hassan is the Managing Director of Meristem Trustees Limited. She's a financial planner with over 14 years experience in the financial services sector. Prior to her foray into investment banking, Damilola worked with the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, where she acquired significant experience in policy advocacy, negotiations, and harmonization of public and private sector interests before joining Meristem Securities Limited in 2006. Damilola has comprehensive experience in investment advisory, portfolio management, marketing, corporate communications, client relationship management, and keen interest in estate planning. She is also an authorized dealing clerk of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, a member of the Chartered Institute of Securities and Investments in the United Kingdom, and the Vice President of the Association of Corporate and Individual Investment Advisors in Nigeria. Damilola, you can say hi to the audience so that we can see you.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you for making our time to be with us this morning. I really believe that it's going to be time well spent, and it will be an interactive session as well. Thank you all for being here.
All right, thank you very much, Damilola. At this point, I would like Damilola's presentation to be shared. Damilola will be taking us through a presentation that highlights the importance of an education trust fund and further teaches us what it is. All right, can we make it bigger using the presentation mode? All right, thank you very much, IT. Damilola, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you, Funaya, once again. And I must join you to welcome Mrs. Yinka Ogunde, to this session. Thank you, ma'am, for making our time to be with us this morning. We thought that beyond just speaking to the trust end of this topic, it's important to also hear from a seasoned educationist so that she could speak to us from her vast experience consulting in the education sector, and it can be indeed a robust conversation. So we're talking about our children today, from chalkboard to the boardroom. It's an entire journey, and we believe that as parents, as guardians, we have a responsibility, to handhold these children and contribute our quota to ensuring that, their dreams find fulfillment. I know it's not totally up to us, but indeed, as parents, as guardians, as people who have children that we're responsible for, it's important that we make a lot of deliberate attempts, be intentional, about securing their educational journey. So, looking at the statistics, you can see that literacy rates across the globe has increased. So IT, please help me. Just take a cue from what I'm saying and jump to the slide I am on. So just take time. Okay, yes. Talking about literacy rate globally speaking, people between the ages of 15 and above, the level of literacy has actually increased from about just below 80 to about 87% thereabouts between 2000 and 2020. I mean, I was surprised when I saw these numbers. I actually thought the numbers would be smaller, but so it's a good thing. I imagine that there are countries that have near 100% literacy rate, while there are some with very poor numbers, but this just sorts of averages the level of literacy globally. Literacy in the sense that people who can basically communicate, describe their immediate environment and communicate, in a clear manner to the next person, to them. But when we come down to Nigeria, literacy rate in Nigeria is just about 62%. Well, that's as far back as 2018 numbers, while our poverty rate in Nigeria, which is taking a cue from people who live below $2 a day, is about 40%. So in essence, we're saying that about 80-something million Nigerians are living below the poverty line, and while about 23% in addition are vulnerable. Vulnerable in the sense that they earn barely $2 a day, and at any point in time they can drop, to the below poverty line. That's why we think it's important to discuss your children's education, because education is indeed a legacy that any parent can leave their children with. Well, how best can you do this? We think that you should come to an understanding of what the advantage of using an estate trust, an estate plan, I beg your pardon, is. So what is estate planning? Estate planning is simply, the process that allows you to arrange your wealth, your assets, putting it together in an orderly manner such that you are properly guided on what is the most effective method of transferring the assets that you have, the assets that you've worked for, that you've labored over over the years. How do you ensure that you are the one deciding who gets what, and not the court, not the extended family, not people who had no idea about how you made your wealth, who had no idea about how you gathered your assets together. Don't leave it to those people to take a decision for you. So essentially, we're advising people to plan their estate such that you are giving what you have to persons of your own choice, and in order to ensure that your legacy is preserved. So I'm not going to bore you with a lot of details on estate planning, but I'm going to narrow it down to an education trust. So the idea of a trust is basically you putting an asset in care, in trust, with a set of people. It can be a registered trustee, like Mersenne trustees. It can be any other trustee, but the whole essence of a trust arrangement is that you are putting a legal framework in place where you can successfully pass on your assets without issues. So narrowing it down to education trust as an estate planning tool, an education trust just simply enables you to set aside funds to be managed by the trustee that you've appointed, strictly for your children, for your wards, for your beneficiaries, generally speaking. The estate plan that you put in place specifically for an education trust, helps you to have concrete plans towards your children's education. I know when we talk about estate plan, a lot of people cringe. They try to avoid these conversations because they think we're actually discussing morbidity. They think we're discussing death. We do not wish to discuss death, but death and everything that comes with it is not a topic that we can avoid. And nobody has control over it. But what are the things that you have control over? You have control over who gets what. You have control over how your assets are distributed. So why not put the necessary measures in place to ensure that you are really and truly able to take care of your loved ones, whether you're around or not. And it's not always about death. Sometimes it's incapacitation. Sometimes it's as simple as a change of status. We've had situations where people are at a certain comfortable level and they can afford certain things. And then things change for one reason or the other. They drop, their financial status drops. At that point in time, when you have that challenge, if you haven't put something in place, like an education trust to secure your children's education, you discover that you have to make significant adjustments, even in terms of their education, because of your status, because your financial status has changed. So why subject your family, your loved ones to this volatility when you can actually, put a plan in place? So who are the parties to an education trust? The trustees. I mentioned earlier, the trustee is an appointed party that you have chosen to manage your trust assets, and they will ensure that the terms of the arrangement are clearly followed through. Your trustees can be an individual, but we recommend a corporate trustee simply because a corporate organization is a going concern. A corporate trustee does not it's continuous. So it's a going concern. It's an incorporation that is also licensed to perform that role, and they have the crop of professionals that you require. Another party to the trust arrangement is the beneficiary. Definitely, there must be a beneficiary to the trust that you are setting aside. So in this case, you are setting up an education trust. The primary beneficiary to your education trust would, of course, be the children who stand to benefit from the trust. And then you, the settlor, you are a party to the trust because you are the one setting up the trust. You are the one determining how you actually want the trust to run and whose benefits you want the trust to be. So what are the basic benefits of an education trust? I've said a lot about estate planning, generally speaking. We have narrowed it down to an education trust. An education trust will afford you, the opportunity to make steady and consistent regular contributions into that education trust that you've created as you desire. So this is you trying to envision. You have a child, you just gave birth to a child, or your child is just one, and you're thinking, asking yourself, so what can I put in place? I don't think the first thing you should be thinking about is a lavish birthday party where you're going to spend millions of naira on a child that does not even understand what is happening and is probably going to sleep off all through that birthday ceremony. Okay, so that's just my opinion, but an education trust is simply you saying, okay, this child is one. In another 15 years thereabouts, this child will be going into college. What do I want to achieve? What do I want where do I want my child to school? What sort of education do I want my child to have? What do I envisage will be the cost 15 years from now? Looking at inflation, looking at a lot of other factors. And then you walk it back to say, okay, I to achieve this dream, I want to set up a trust that will allow me to contribute monthly, quarterly, biannually, as is convenient for you. You then decide that you want to have this fund set aside such that you are steadily contributing into it up until that time that the child is going to access college. Now, the difference between an education trust and a regular savings account that you may want to have in the name of your child, or that you may just want to have for the benefit of your child, is the fact that it is a trust. It is held in trust on your behalf. And so my second point here says it is inaccessible to probate or creditors. Don't forget that the moment you create a trust, whether an education trust or any type of trust at all, you have more or less isolated the assets that you have put in that trust, and you have separated those assets from your personal estate. So the assets are no longer a part of your personal estate. So it's you are owing creditors and they want to take over your assets and all of that. The trust that you have separated is immune from all of that. Also, you have put together that education trust and you have identified the beneficiaries, your children. In case of any eventuality happening, it is not a topic of debate for an extended family or for a brother or for a cousin to come to say, no, okay, so this 10 million that my brother has with Meristem Trustees, I think we should use it to complete his house in the village, it's not, nobody has the authority to make that decision on your behalf, because you have actually created that education trust, you've separated it and it is running, and it is absolutely in control of the trustees that you have partnered with. You can tailor this to meet your needs. You can, like I said, you're trying to decide the college that your child will go to. Perhaps you don't have a clear idea, but you have an idea of the nation. So you want your children to school in the UK, you want them to school in Canada, in the US. You can decide that the education trust that you want for your children should be in a foreign currency, such that you are not just setting aside the funds, you are not just kept it in trust, but you are also hedging, against foreign currency risk, and you are protecting that asset, from devaluation. So it can be tailored to meet your needs. That's basically, what I'm trying to say. That it's like you having, a canvas open before you, and then you are sculpting, you are drawing, you are painting that picture that you desire, and then you have the plan that allows you to execute, that plan. Another benefit to the education trust that we're talking to you about this morning, that it brings a certain level of discipline to you. So how many of you have said, this year I'm going to set aside X amount and I'm not going to touch it for this and for that? Really? How well have you done that? You said so many things that you want to do. There are times that you have very lofty ideas, or you've probably even sat at a webinar like this and you've had fantastic ideas and things you need to do. But do you have an accountability partner that actually helps you, to see through those plans? Or you just dream it, you say, okay, I'm going to get it done. And then next month, something comes up, somebody is requiring money and you're transferring this money. Another need is coming up and you're transferring that money. Before you know it, you've packed your plans aside because there are other obligations. The truth is, these obligations will not stop. The obligations will keep coming. they will never stop. I mean, my father is a retired, he's been retired for how many years, and he's about 80 now, and he still has obligations. I mean, he still has people calling on him to do one thing or the other for them. And sometimes I wonder, this man has retired how many years ago? So the truth is, obligations will always, always, always come. But you have to put yourself first. You have to be a bit selfish about what it is that you want for yourself, for your children, and for your family. I've said a lot already on the benefits, but there's also another additional advantage that you can add to this. You can add an insurance plan to it, such that there's a life insurance policy that you tie to this education trust. So you may be working towards a particular goal. Say you want to achieve X amount of money in 10 years. And the insurance plan that you want to put in place, I mean, that is an optional thing, says that, okay, X amount can be insured for you, such that in case of anything, in case of sudden demise, incapacitation, or whatever, this particular amount is still assured towards, the education of your children. So again, I mentioned, it can be tailored to suit your needs. Whatever it is that you desire, you just need to sit with professionals and think through it and come up with a plan that suits you, a plan that can work for you, and then you can make that happen. Who can set up a trust? A parent can set up a trust for the benefit of the children, obviously. Grandparents, extended family can set up a trust. We've had situations where, the extended family, friends, can set up an education trust, for children. We've had situations where extended family, friends have come together, so they lost a friend and they understand the friend's passion about the children's education, and they said, so what can we do? How can we help to preserve our friend's legacy? And then they put together funds, which is like an endowment, and then they put into a trust and it is dedicated for the child's education. We have seen, practically speaking now, cases where such a trust was set up upon demise of a friend, and those children have graduated from university as we speak, and the funds that are left in the trust is now available for the children's use to even pursue other dreams. So there's a lot that can be done, with an education trust. Of course, a corporate entity can set up an education trust for late employees' children. It may not even until they are late. It could be that you just want to add it as part of the incentives that you are making available to your dedicated staff. We can always work around that. When can you set up a trust? At any point in time. You're just newly wedded, or your child attains education age, or you have some bonuses. Why have a dirty December when you can have a brilliant legacy for your child? So am I saying you shouldn't have fun? No, definitely not. But I'm sure you understand what I mean. And of course, what are the assurances you have? As a roundup, your assurances when you set up a trust. I've said a lot about you appointing a trustee. You don't have to worry about assets held in trust because there are ways to protect your interests. You can always appoint a protector. Appointing a protector, is to ensure that even in your absence, the protector clearly understands what you're passionate about, and the protector can still be the go-between between that beneficiary and the trustees. So it's not like you're worried about, so what happens if I'm no more? Who is going to ensure that what I have defined, in my estate plan is being kept to by the trustees? You can also appoint a successor trustee to say, in the case of anything going on with my current trustees, I actually want X, Y, and Z, or to be on standby as my successor trustees. So you can have that. And like I mentioned earlier, it just protects your assets. It insulates your assets, from every other thing going on in terms of your own, what is going on with the assets that are still held in your name, because this is a dedicated plan that you have taken out of your own control, as it were, and you have handed over, to your trustees. So having said all of that, I think it's important that you consider this. That's why we are here this morning. We are here to take your questions. Mrs. Ogunde would also still be speaking to us. Let's talk about this thing. Let's talk about how you can, put this plan in place, how you can even put an estate plan together beyond an education trust. Meristem Trustees is very much available, to provide the counsel, to provide the advice that you require. And like we always say, it's not just about growing wealth for you, it's to help you to effectively grow your wealth, preserve the wealth, and ensure that it is effectively transferred, to the next generation without any regrets. Thank you very much. Ifunanya, over to you.
Thank you very much, Damilola, for the brilliant presentation on what an education trust is. It's important for our audience to know that, like Damilola said, an education trust ensures that you secure the dreams that you have for your children's future. It enables you to track your plans and also ensure that they are truly executed because you have an accountability partner in Meristem Trustees Limited or any other trustee that you choose. Finally, to recap everything in a nutshell, you can choose to have a protector to ensure compliance with your wishes. You can also decide to have a successor trustee or even a bankruptcy protection. Thank you again, Damilola, for that detailed presentation. Okay, at this time, I'll call on Mrs. Yinka Ogunde to tell us the importance of an uninterrupted education for our children. Mrs. Yinka, you have the floor.
Okay, good morning, everyone. And thank you, Ifunanya, and thank you, Meristem, for putting this together. I must say that this is a very important discussion at this time. As I was listening to Damilola, what really occurred to me is the fact that this is a conversation that every young parent must listen to. That it's not just going to happen by you wishing your children will go to the best schools in the world or anything like that. You actually need to plan for it. You need to put some things in place. Yes, we have a very interesting topic today, from chalkboard to boardroom. And one of the questions that I ask myself is that there is such a huge gap between the chalkboard and the boardroom. The intervening years, what is happening within those years? How are you going to move them from the chalkboard to the boardroom? That is the discussion, and that's a thought that every one of us must give serious consideration to, especially when we listen to things like this. That was an excellent presentation, Damilola, because I can see that this is something that is relevant to the time that we are in. We're talking about the importance of uninterrupted education. I've seen the effect of interrupted education on our children. I have seen what happens when the how do we put it, when life happens, because there's so many things that can happen within that gap of starting school and graduation. There is a huge gap. Death can occur. We don't want to talk about it, but it's the reality of the time that we're in. Job losses. Job losses can occur. We all recall that in 2019, it was as if everything was rising, and then 2020 happened, and several industries that were thrown into disarray. I remember engaging in conversations with some school owners and things like that. There was a particular school that had quite a number of their parents coming from the aviation sector, coming from the hospitality industry. And what happened? Of course, they have salary beat started. After that, no salary and so many things. And this school was seriously affected because planes were not flying, people were not traveling, hotels were empty. And what's the next thing with that kind of thing? Parents were unable to afford basic things for their children. But this is something this is a reality that we all need to come to terms with and begin to prepare for. That what do we do? I would like to suggest that even right from the first day that a couple gets married, It's a conversation that we must have. What kind of education do we want for our children? What do we want? How do we begin to plan for that? Because where there is no plan, when you are not intentional, you are leaving yourself to the vagaries of so many things that may happen along the line. And we have seen this in operation several times. I just talked about job losses. I mentioned briefly about the issue of the spouse departing. And of course, we all know that sickness may even come and people are unable to work. These are the realities, even in the times that we are in now. So, what do you do as a parent? What do you do? How will you ensure that your children's education remain uninterrupted from crèche to the to the nursery school, to the primary school, to the secondary school, to the A-level college, and to the university? You need to sit down and determine, how do we want to fund the kind of education that we envision for our children? Because sometimes a lot of us assume things, and that's the biggest problem of a lot of parents, myself included. With the benefit of hindsight now, I'm just asking myself, how did I even navigate all these things? How did we navigate it? Because listening to Damilola, it was as if, oh my God, you guys in the Gunde family, you just escaped. You just escaped. Because these are things that could happen to anybody. There are things that could happen to anybody. And I believe that if young couples listen to things like this, they will be able to plan better, because we never had the advantage of this kind of conversation. All we had were dreams, and we were not thinking of how to bring that dream to reality. And we're thankful today that there was no break, but it could have been otherwise. We have friends that it happened to. Their dreams of the kind of education they wanted for their children was truncated. How do you prevent this kind of truncated journey for your children's education? The first thing I like to advise is really sit down with professionals and ask questions and learn and see how to do it. I'm asking myself that as I'm seated here, if anything happens, let's say my leg is paining me or I have a pain in a part of my body or something, who do I call? Immediately, I'm looking for a doctor. I want to sit down with the doctor. I want to talk to the doctor. I want to discuss all those issues and get a solution. If I have a legal problem, what do? I want to sit with a lawyer. It is because we are not identifying the education of our children as a major part of things. Maybe that is why we don't understand that we need to actually have this kind of discussion, that how do I fund it? If I am not deliberate about how to fund it, then it's not going to happen. If I'm going to create a trust and I know that rather than spend 1.5 million on a birthday party for a 1 year old or a 2 year old, let me split it into two and have a parlor party and reserve the 750,000 and put it in a trust. Let me know that even if it is 20,000 a month I am dropping into that place, it's going to amount to something at the end of the day. And it makes me feel more confident. It makes me feel more in control about what is happening. When you talk to a lot of young couples, oh, yes, we want to send the children abroad. We want them to go to this college or we want them to go to that college. Sometimes I really see them, I ask them, how do you intend to fund it? Yes, it's wonderful. We all believe in God. I mean, I depend on the Lord totally. But when you say that God will do it, then, I mean, it is great. It's the Lord that will do it. But you now need to ask yourself the question, let me put all the things on ground and let me analyze, how do I proceed so that even that I will be backed up. So they are very, very pertinent questions, because we have sent their children abroad and those children need to come back with all the trauma associated with it. So before you build a house, they also count the cost. That is why we have all those surveyors and things like that, that will do a cost analysis for you, that will give you a breakdown of how much is going to cost you to build a house. education in terms of that. Because I can assure you about something, that it is unlikely that the cost of education will come down. It is unlikely. It's not going to come down. And that means that if you're really serious about providing your children with good education, you need to be more intentional about it. You need to ask yourself, how much do I need to save per month? It promotes the saving culture, just like Damilola also rightly said. Because if you are not saving towards that education, you are going to have a lot of problems. And your children's education may be truncated, or may be cut midway, or they may need to step down from that standard that you have envisaged for them. And this sometimes causes children a lot of trauma, a lot of pain. I experienced it before in terms of one of my children. I mean, here I mean, you always need to be, I always believed in any conversation in being very open and authentic. My daughter was going to a school that she absolutely loved and everything. I mean, top of the range, everything. But when we sat down and we said, we won't be able to send all of them to this thing. Okay, you just managed to finish GSS 3, and let us now bring you the that affected her for years. Up till today, the second school that we took her to, even though it's also a very, very good school, she never felt she belonged. She doesn't count herself as part of that school. In fact, she looks at us sometimes with a bit of resentment that why on earth did you guys take that kind of awful decision? With the benefit of hindsight, if we had been more intentional about our planning, we wouldn't run into such things that can bring a bit of trauma to our children. And the thing about it is that sit down as a couple and plan. It will help. Seek the help of professionals, and it's easier for your children to have uninterrupted education. Thank you very much for listening to me. I think I've kept to time, 10 minutes. Yes.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Yinka. Yes, you kept the time. And we appreciate the fact that you pointed out those eventualities that could happen, those unplanned circumstances that could change the lives of our children forever. It goes to say that anything can happen, therefore parents must plan intentionally to ensure that their dreams for their children are actualized. All right, we'll start by asking the first question according to certain case studies in life. We have a certain lady called Kimberly, and Kimberly grew up with quite rich parents. However, along the line, Kimberly lost her parents. She therefore had to move in with her grandmother. For this reason, her grandmother couldn't take care of her fees. She ended up, dropping out, and her teachers brought the issue to the attention of the Parent Teachers Association. So the question now is, now that Kimberly's parents are diseased and they can no longer take care of their dream for her education, is there anything her parents could have done better? I think that question goes to Damilola. You're ready.
Okay, yes. What could Kimberly's parents have done better? I mean, there are a lot of things we can do better every time we think through it. When it comes to the education of our children, like Mrs. Ogunde emphasized, it's important that we are very intentional. Now, nobody wakes up today to say, okay, so I think I'm going to die today, and so because of that, I think I should do this and that. No, but the whole essence of planning is, to put in all of the factors that are possible and then put a plan in place such that if those risks crystallize, you're covered. I don't want to imagine that Kimberly's parents ever thought that they would die or they would pass on, and even at the same time, so such that Kimberly would have to drop out of school. So an education trust could have simply just resolved resolve that, because they know what they are going towards, and they know that setting aside X amount of money on a regular basis, sometimes it may not even just be money. Sometimes it could be that you put certain assets, near cash assets or whatever type of assets, into that education trust, and you dedicate the income that comes from that asset towards meeting your children's education needs. I see that you mentioned that our teachers, so Kimberly is a brilliant student, so that's why our teachers are bringing to the attention of the PTA and all of that. But in how many situations can the PTA step in? So we've had situations where even as a school, we've had meetings with school PTAs, and they've decided to have an endowment such that it's a collective endowment account, for that particular school and particular PTA. And, they have criteria for those who can access it and all of that. So, but I think the emphasis is, if whatever your situation is at this point in time, we can discuss, work around it and then put up a plan. So Kimberly's parents have passed on. The school can still remedy the situation if they want to put together an endowment fund, or, it could be a committee of friends, it could be in any way, in any form. An education trust can still be set up for Kimberly in the form of an endowment. So people just give, one off. Let me also say this, we've had this, I imagine that we've all had this situation where someone really special to you, passes on. And at that point in time, you're really passionate about, oh my goodness, what's going to happen to their children? And you're really very concerned, and you are calling, you are asking questions. And then over time, you just sort of forget about them, not because you want to forget about them, but because you also have your own challenges. So we've had situations where at that point in time, when that sad incidents occurred, friends have come together to quickly take a decision, while the situation is still fresh in the minds of so many, and they can still commit funds. So it's not okay, let's be doing this every month or every quarter. It's a one-off. Let's raise X amount. This X amount you are putting, you're not giving it to our friend's spouse, or you're not giving it to an uncle or an auntie to say it's for the child's education. The day that uncle does not have house rent to pay, he's going to take from that money to pay his house rent. So we've had situations where an education trust was now then created, specifically for the children that the deceased, left behind. And then the trust, as trustees, we take care of, settling the bills from the school directly. So there's no, we don't have food today, we don't have house rent, can we take out of this money? Our mandate is to pay, to the school, believing that you can always sort out any other thing, regarding the children. Thank you, Funaya.
Thank you very much, Damilola, for that illustration, because if the funds are given to family members, they can use it to solve more pressing needs than actually reserving those funds for the children's education. That's an important point. Thank you very much. Mrs. Yinka, this question is from Ijiezie Ezana in the Q&A chat box. Ijiezie is worried that if he sets up an education trust for the daughter, that inflation and other economic factors would affect that. In that case, is it still worth it? So the Ijeze is asking, if I set aside, let's say 10 million today, in the future, my child will need a lot more than that. So why should I even start this journey? Is it really worth it?
Well, that's a technical question. I think that Damilola will be in the best position to really answer that. But for me, one thing I know is that you're setting aside the money for your child, and especially if it's an investment account, something that you will, it's not just the amount that you've put there that you have access to. That should add to something. So I guess that Dami will be able to talk more in that area. She's the investment person here. Yes.
Yes, if I am not sure got that question correctly.
Okay. Ijevie is asking about the effect of
duration.
inflation, the
Oh, okay.
duration, inflation, everything.
Okay. Okay. Oh, of course. So inflation is an issue that in this part of the world we battle with. And we all know that as we speak, the returns being earned on money market investments, short-term, even fixed income investments, they are below inflation rates as we speak. So if you want to critically look at inflation as a factor on its own, you would not even do anything, because it's difficult to justify putting your money in federal government treasury bills, for example, that will give you returns that is significantly lower than inflation. So you can't have you can't solve all of your problems with a single solution. So it requires putting a lot of things together. So we advise, typically when it comes to investments, there's, just the way you're building a house and you're laying a foundation, and you cannot compromise anything regarding that foundation. You should have investments that are risk-free, that the capital is guaranteed, but of course the returns will be low. You should have that. That's like a bedrock, that's like a foundation. Then you can now consider investments with a little more risk that can help you hedge against inflation, but of course they also have the potential of losing value. So by the time you put that as an addition into the basket of the already secured investment that you have, it helps to balance it out. And then by the time you do an average of the returns, more or less you are hedging against inflation. So for example, if you have fixed income like bonds, treasury bills, and all of that in a secured investment in trust, you can still have investment in equities. You can have investment, you can buy shares, with companies that have sound fundamentals, and that, has the capacity to give you returns far above inflation, but then you can lose your capital. You also need to know that. You can also have real estate. So we've had situations where the trust that was set aside allowed the investors to put aside those funds consistently. So maybe you are looking at a 10-year period, but over 5 years, you've put in a significant amount of money, that can afford you to buy a property that you will not live in, but you will rent out. And then we are redirecting the trust to say, okay, so now I'm converting this savings investment portfolio into real estate. I'm buying this property, I'm putting XYZ tenants in it so that I can earn XYZ amount. And I want that rental income to now be the fund that is dedicated towards the education trust. So oftentimes when you are still actively working, you are not taking out of this trust fund. You are doing it in case you are unable to. At any point in time, you are unable to, maybe because your financial status changes or you are no more. That's when you want to fall back on that education trust. I've tried to say a lot of things, in trying to answer that question, but I hope I've been able to answer it. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I'll also chip in one or two things, especially in relation to this question, so that we have in mind the ultimate objective and goal of the Education Trust Fund, because it's all about giving you peace of mind ultimately, so that you know that anything along the way, the future of your children, in terms of their education, is secured. And that, when you put it, you can't really say that inflation is what prevented me from taking this decision. It's a decision that you just need to make as a family, that I want to ensure that the future of my children, especially regarding their education, is secure. We've seen so many things that happens in our African society, especially when something goes wrong, or when the breadwinner or somebody is no longer around. It's never easy on the other spouse that is left to take care of the children. So when you look at it and add everything together, it really goes beyond inflation. It's a decision that a family makes and say, we want peace of mind in this area in terms of educating our children. And that's why we're seeking for ways of ensuring that we do this well. And when you combine it with insurance options and so many other options, which I believe that the experts can advise one on, then you have the peace of mind required. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mrs. Yinka, for that valuable addition. It's all about peace of mind. When you have peace of mind and your funds are entrusted into the hands of a trustee who knows what they are doing, who are experts in the field, you can be sure that they will give you returns as high as the market can yield per period. It may not necessarily beat inflation all the time, but it will do its best to cushion the effects of inflation on your assets. Thank you very much, Damilola. Thank you also, Mrs. Yinka. Another question with regards to this is, the attendee is asking, is there a maturity date or does he have to run till the parent dies?
Okay, so like I said, it is tailored to suit your needs. So if you have 2 kids now and you believe you are done having children and you want to look at their age. So if you want us to build it, to customize it, specifically to your peculiar situation, we will do that. We'll look at the ages of your children. What exactly do you want to do with the education trust? Is it just specifically for college? Because you believe you're in your active working life and you're still earning enough, to take them through primary and high school. So if that is in place and what you want to work towards is college, then we look at the number of years between their age and when they'll go into college till when they finish from college. And we all know that college now is not just about the first degree. The first degree is almost like, given the competitiveness around now. So you have to go beyond the first degree to now then even consider a second degree as well. So we look at how long will it take to achieve that? And then, so you can now then say, okay, if I'm going to need X amount of money now, let's work it back to how much I should be putting down monthly, weekly, whatever. Or for some people, they just say, see, I don't want to give myself high blood pressure. That amount that we are looking at looks like a very huge amount. I know that I can comfortably keep away X amount every month without coming back to it for the next 5 years, for example. So we can always structure that. So it's not until the parents that we don't want the parents to die. We want the parents to be around, but we're just saying that if anything happens and the parents are now then no more, the children will be able to fall back on what has been set aside so that their education is not interrupted.
All right, thank you very much, Damilola, for that. It can be tailored to suit the parents' needs or their desires.
Okay. I see a question here now on they're asking for a bit more explanation on the trusts and the insurance bit. So for us at the American Trustees, the education trust is for you to be accountable to set aside funds, not in your name, but for the benefit for the children. And every money that you put into the trust builds up. So you are building it up towards a target. Now, we are saying that in addition to that, you can have an insurance cover also to say that, okay, Meristem, in addition to this education trust, I want an insurance cover of X amount. So I'm working towards saving 10 million for a child, as an example, and I want this 10 million to be assured that no matter what happens to me, even if I'm still 9 million, 8 million away from this 10 million target, I want this 10 million assured. So we have insurance partners that we work with to bring in the insurance end of it to say, okay, based on where you are now in terms of what you've set aside, this is the premium you would pay. So the insurance premium you will be paying does not contribute part of the education trust fund that you're building up. It is a premium that goes to the insurance company that assures that amount in case of demise, So, and if at the point where your savings gets to that target, you no longer need that insurance premium again. So that insurance cover again. So you stop paying that premium. But if before hitting that target, something happens, and so if the insurance cover is a life insurance, for example, and it caters to, to death of the sponsor parent, for example, then that insurance cover kicks off, and the amount that is assured is ensured that is available to to the trustees to take care of the education. So rather than just any random member of the family getting the sum assured, it is the trust account that you've created, that takes care of or that receives the benefit from that insurance, and then it is now then deployed towards the children's education.
All right, thank you very much, Damilola, for that explanation about how an insurance applies to the Education Trust Fund. Hey, if asking another question, can someone start a trust for unborn children? Can someone start a trust for an unborn children or for unborn children?
So, yes and no. For a trust, remember I mentioned three parties: the beneficiaries, the settlor, and the trustee. So for an unborn child, you can set up a trust, but you would be the beneficiary. And then at any point, because you don't have a name, to it, you can actually define you can make a provision in the trust deed to say that you want this trust to also accommodate your children that come in the future. But that it's not specific, your children in the future. So as you have the children, you can now then update the trust deed to say, okay, child A, name is this is the identity, this is blah, 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 blah. This child, include the child as a beneficiary. So when you're setting up that initial trust and you want it for the education of the children, you are the immediate beneficiary because the children are not born. But you mentioned in the trust deed, we would make provision for the unborn children in the trust deed, and then that has to be updated when when the children now then come. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much, Damilola. Okay, at this time, our attendees, please look at the chat box. You would see a link. If you want us to reach out to you with more details about setting up an education trust fund, either for yourself, for postgraduate education, or for your children, kindly complete this form. The form is there right now. Please click it. Enter your details, your phone number, your emails, your name. We'll be very glad to reach out to you with more information. All right, so we'll go back to the Q&A chat box to take more questions. Let's see. Obeyemi is asking about the return. Obeyemi says, what is the rate of return on the money being deposited in the Education Trust Fund? Okay, Damilola, will you like to take that, please?
I'm sorry, I got distracted. What did you say?
Okay, Obeyemi is asking, what is the rate of return on the money being deposited in the Education Trust Fund? Okay,
so as a rule of thumb, we benchmark the Education Trust against the money market returns. So, but because it is tailored to suit your needs, if it's a long term and you are bringing a lump sum, so it means that there are more options that we can expose the investment to. More options in terms of, so if you're going to invest in treasury bills or in federal government bonds, for example, there's a minimum amount. So if you are bringing a lump amount to start up the education trust, what the returns you will get will be different from if you're starting up small to build. So the minimum, for the sake of this webinar. The minimum, is 200,000. And then if you are building it up, what you can earn on 200,000 is benchmarked against your standard money market rate. The money market rate in the market is between 8 and 9% as we speak. But if it's a lump sum, you can access, there's a lot more that we can do in terms of bringing additional types of investments into the basket, and that would help you to earn higher returns. So it's all based on your situation.
All right, thank you, Damilola. That is very clear. So if you have a lump sum, you have a lot more options of different asset classes that you could invest in, which may give you higher returns than the regular money market rate, which applies to parents or investors who want to start small. Thank you very much. Okay, this one is from Regina. It goes to Mrs. Yinka. Regina is asking, how then do I know the right kind of schools to pick for my children? Because Mrs. Yinka has said, save up money, start early, so that you don't, pull your child out of that good school into the one where she would, resent you for some time. So Regina is asking, how do I know the best schools for my children, since you're an education expert?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question, Regina. A very interesting one. And the thing is about when you want to choose a good school for your child, the process must actually begin with a better understanding of who your child is. Once, when you have that picture, it is now left for you to be able to look for schools that will align with your family values, that will align with the kind of child that's or the qualities that you believe that your child has, and of course that will also align with your family budgets. Because no matter what it says at the end of the day, especially for private schools and for private education, you need money to fund it. So you must try to look for a school that sort of fits in with that. But above all, you must try to look for a school that is right for your child. Nobody will tell you that my school is not good, or this school is not good, or that. That is not really the question. One thing I always believe is that there is a right school for every child. The fact that the child of your neighbor is thriving in his school may not necessarily make it the right school for your own child, especially if you don't know what your child needs. But when you know who your child is, what your child needs, and the school that will fit your child, you are looking for schools that actually possess that. I always tell people that every school has a particular culture. Every school has what I call a particular environment. There's some schools that you get to, you just know that I love this school. Everything appears to be right. I can see from the way the children are smiling. I can see the informal way that the children, the students address the way they relate with their teachers, the way they relate with each other. You just feel that there's something right about that school, and that may be the right place for your child, especially if your child is so inclined. You may look for a school that, okay, I don't want a school whereby there's just a few of them in that school. I want a school whereby my child will be able to compete with so many people. That may be for you. But for another person, may decide that, look, my child needs special nurturing. I want a school where there's that individual attention, where people don't appear to be in a hurry to get things done. So everything depends on what you want for your child and your own understanding about those things that believe you make your child to really excel, will make your child to fly. I hope that answers your question, Regina, at least a little bit in the context of what we're talking about. Yeah.
All right, that is quite clear, Mrs. Yinka. I think that should answer Regina's question. All right.
Maybe she cannot, maybe Ms. Ogunde can also answer that question on how can I access information on foreign education for my children?
Okay. In terms of foreign education for your children, we do quite a lot of webinars which you may align with. In fact, we had one for British boarding schools last Saturday, and quite a number of parents came in there to ask questions about how to get their children to sixth form colleges and all that. So it depends on the level that your child is, whether you want a sixth form college or whether it's ready for university or a postgraduate degree. There are quite a number of them, but I always make that statement, especially when it comes to even schools or schools anywhere. There are no bad schools, only bad choices.
Mm.
Only bad choice. So you have to put that in context. So, but I'm sure that if I or any of the team in Mary STEM, they'll be able to give you my contact details if you want to talk more about that, and we'll be able to advise you on how to go about it.
All right. Thank you very much, Mrs. Yinka. Thank you for that. Okay, we have another question in the Q&A chat box. Let me read it out. So Jonathan is asking, Jonathan says, good morning, Mary STEM and Mrs. Hassan. What do I do about estate planning now that I'm ready to do it after the last webinar on the subject? That is Jonathan.
Okay, please, Ifan, I believe the form is in the chat. The link to the form is in the chat. Yes, so please just click on the link. We've put a link in the chat room. Just click on it to complete the form so that we can have a bit of background to what it is that you want. And this applies to everyone. We know that we can't exhaust all of your questions here. There are questions that are very personal to you as well, and you want to bring to our attention, and you want us to be able to advise. So we'll encourage you all to click on the form. Just open the chat room, click on the link, to fill in that the details that we've required, and then we'll be able to communicate with you and help you to execute. So Jonathan, I appreciate that question. Beyond participating in a webinar like this, it's important to just take a decision to start. I want to get it started. So that's a good one. We are very much available. Just fill the form and then we'll take it up from there. Thank you.
All right. I have projected here on our screen the process flow for an education trust, and would proceed from there to discuss another case study. So this one is case study 2. It says Mr. John and his wife Ruth got married under their native law and custom. After 10 years of marriage, John and his wife finally had a child. Sadly, his wife Ruth died at childbirth. John promised his wife on her deathbed that he would provide the best for their child. He boasted to his brother that Caleb, their son, would attend the best of schools, including an Ivy League school for his college education. Unfortunately, John did not document any of his intentions. A few years later, John died intestate, and under his native laws and customs, his elder brother automatically inherits his property. John, before his demise, did not have an estate plan in place. His brother enrolled Caleb in a mechanic shop as an apprentice, despite Caleb's pleas and ambition to become a doctor in the nearest future. The first question, should John have documented his intentions? What tools should John have used? And can Caleb remind his uncle of his father's wishes before his death and make him implement same? Damilola, I think that Jonathan could see our slides, so he asked this question ahead of time. It's coming back to us again.
Okay, so this says, let me start from the last one that says, can Caleb remind his uncle of his father's wishes before his death and make him implement same? He can try to remind his uncle, but if his uncle does not have the same belief system that his father had, then it will be very difficult. Also, it's just basically that nobody can. You as the parent, you have the primary responsibility to for your children, and passion, for your children's education can hardly be transferred. It can be understood, but perhaps not transferred. So you don't expect John and his brother to have the same values, the same aspirations. So to answer the second question, the first one, should John have documented his intentions? Absolutely. And that's what we speak to whenever we have webinars like this on estate planning, documenting, what your intentions are. So for some people, it is as simple as writing a will. So this is beyond education trust now. Do you have a will? Do you have assets in your name in whatever form? As simple as your retirement savings account. It doesn't automatically fall to your next of kin, like some of us think. Do you have a will in place that specifies who should even, get what? Taking it further beyond the will is the living trust as a tool. The assets that you have now, you can actually decide who should get it. And the process of, you commence the process of transferring those assets to a trustee that begins to manage it while you are very much alive, and then the returns from the assets are deployed as you have desired it. And then you are seeing it happen in your lifetime. You are able to make corrections, you are able to make changes, and as you do that, you are seeing it happen. So it is not when you now pass on that someone from your family will rise up to say, no, that wasn't his intention concerning this house. That wasn't it, because you already commenced it even while you were very much alive. So it's a lot more difficult to contest whatever it is that you do under a trust arrangement than if it's just even you writing a will. So what tools should John have used to secure his son's future? An education trust would have been a simple thing, So it could even have been that he dedicated one or two assets that are significant and say, let me put these assets in a trust and let it be for the benefit of my children's education. It's as simple as that. You have said it, it is clear, no one can contest it, and the trustees have the duty to carry that out. I saw a question in the chat box earlier where someone said, that if in the case of demise, that how will the child access the benefit? We have living practical examples. The child has nothing to worry about because the child is not an adult. The trustee takes up that responsibility with the funds that you have provided in the trust, in the trust account, and they take care of the children's the child's school fees from that. Where at the point of demise, what has been deposited is significantly lower, than what it would take to see that child through college. The trustees initiate a meeting with the protector that you named in your plan, in your trust deed. So to say, okay, so this is the situation, this is this person's wishes, but this is the amount that is in this account now. If we continue with XYZ type of school, these funds will be exhausted, by year, so what do you advise that we do? That's why we encourage you to name a protector, that we can have that conversation with. So it could be that we've had situations where at that point in time, an additional fund was raised, like an endowment, while that matter was still fresh, while that demise was still fresh in the minds of loved ones. And then that additional fund was added to the trust account to say, okay, so let's augment what is there so that seamlessly the children's education are being taken care of, and you're not having to change schools or, lower the standard that our brother or our sister would have wanted, for their children. So I think I've answered all three questions.
Okay, thanks a lot. I mean, Damilola, I think you said quite a bit. Maybe I'll just chip in a little about this in terms of or every one of us just seeing things beyond today. And 2020 has taught us a lot of lessons. It has taught us that things that we thought was impossible, we have seen it happening. And especially when you look at your family and when you review things and you see that If anything happens, you are not exactly sure of the process of inheritance or who will look after what. It's not about them not wanting to do the right thing, but they just find it impossible to do the right thing. And when they're supported by tradition, it becomes worse. Or when the culture actually promotes a certain line of inheritance, things become very, very disorganized. So you need to really be able to review it and say, what do I want to put in place? If I am, I pray that every one of us will all be alive, we see everything to the end, but you want to just take that extra step and say that in terms of education, because you know that the only way you can secure the future of your children is ensuring that they get good education. And that is a legacy that you do not want to compromise on. So you just take care of that. So that's the way I see that particular case study. So, yeah.
All right, thank you very much, Mrs. Yinka. It is well understood. At this point, we'll go to case study 3. We have discussed Kimberly's case. We have discussed Caleb's case, and now we're discussing that of a company. I'll read the case study. XYZ Limited, a manufacturing company, lost 2 of its valued employees in an accident while at work. The company ensured it compensated the deceased employees' family members. However, a few months later, the family members came back to complain that their children were chased out of school as a result of not being able to pay their fees. In the process of trying to get its board approval to provide additional funds to the deceased employees' family members, one of the directors advised the management team to set up an education trust solely for the education of the deceased employees' children until they obtain the first degree. Okay, I think this question goes to Damilola. Can companies set up education trust for the beneficiaries of their deceased staff?
Absolutely. And I think I mentioned that while I was taking my presentation, that anyone can set up an education trust for the benefit of specified beneficiaries. So in this case of XYZ Limited, it can be that the company just sets up a fund, for primarily for the benefit of the deceased employees' children, and then name one of the family members as the protector, and then they put in a fund that is more or less like an endowment, so it's one-off, and it is primarily for the purpose of the children's education. So you avoid a situation where family members keep coming back. So we've had that play out as well, where the company, the HR of the company approached us to say, okay, so this has happened. This person is entitled to this and that, but we also don't want a situation where, a few months down the line, the funds are exhausted, because there will always be needs, so create this. It's one-off. We don't want to keep coming back. We can't sustain having to keep coming back. So we're just going to endow the fund with X amount of money, and then so we liaise with the school, and then we take up the payment of the fees. But like I also suggested, beyond waiting for that to happen in an organization, it's also part of what you can provide as incentives. So when you're talking about good places to work, why should people choose you? So beyond you making the mandatory life assurance available, it's also something that you can put in place to say you have an endowment fund that is dedicated to deceased employees' children for as long as those employees, those people were in the employment of the company at the point of demise. So we can always work with the company to come up with a plan, and how employees can benefit from it. So that can always be worked out too.
All right, thank you very much, Damilola. Hay is asking another question that is linked to the last one you just answered. Hay says, who prompts the trust fund about the demise of a parent? In a case where a parent opens a trust fund privately without the stakeholders included in the trust fund being aware.
Very good question. So we have several situations where beyond an education trust, you are putting together an estate plan. Of course, it's not for different reasons, very sensitive reasons sometimes, and you don't want people to know or one thing or the other. But what we always insist on is have a protector, and we get the details of the protector. So you may choose to inform the protector, you may choose not to inform the protector, but we have the information on the protector, and the details. So it can work either way. If you inform the protector that you have this in place. So oftentimes the protector is not even a family member. The protector is maybe a close friend or maybe one person or the other, So the protector can get in touch with us to say this has happened. You can also have the other bit where on a periodic basis, we get in touch with our clients. So it's a routine getting in touch with our clients, even for clients that we've done the one-off writing of their will and we've sorted them out. We have a tradition of staying in touch. So we call at a particular period, and we must get a response. So if we don't get a response, we call again. So it's already part of the system. There's a system of checking up on our clients, periodically. And it is when we don't get a response, it means that person probably passed on and nobody is even aware. Then we put we set, the system in place to, then reach out to the next of kin and then get additional information, and then we take it off from there.
All right, thank you very much, Damilola.
So I imagine that person is concerned about confidentiality, and at the same time, you don't want it to boomerang where over confidentiality now then deprives the beneficiary. So we very much understand that, and we work with individuals based on what really suits your situation. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Damilola. That is well covered. I need not say any more than what Damilola has said. We have attendees at Chinyere asking if this video will be made available for them to watch. Chinyere wants to give the video to her husband to watch it and get in touch with Meristem. Yes, we are currently live on YouTube, and I have also copied and pasted the link to Meristem Nigeria's YouTube page. Please go to our YouTube page. This video will be available once we are done. We're currently live. And you can also check out other videos on our estate planning webinars and other webinars we have had in the past. More importantly, ensure to complete the form in the chat box if you want us to contact you with regards to setting up an education trust fund for your children. All right, this question goes to Mrs. Yinka. Let's see. Okay, someone in the chat box is worried about the focus for children. As an education expert, and with a lot of news that we have heard about education not being as quality as it used to be in the past, and especially curriculum in Nigeria becoming outdated, what do you have to say about that? Will you advise that, parents should mainly focus abroad or focus on, IT or any specific field in education so that their children will be relevant upon graduation? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Ifunaya. Quite an interesting question, even though we're not talking about curriculum development and all those issues today. But I'm sure that just parents want to know and be reassured that their children, they're being well educated. One of the things I always tell people to do is that be a present parent. Be a present parent when you are there. It's not just being when I use the word present, it's not just being there physically alone, It's also much more engaging with your child so that you will know what that child is learning, how that child is growing, how that child is developing. And if the school also understands that you are very, very interested in what is going on with in the life of your child, you will see that when things are going wrong, you will be able to catch up with to catch it quickly. Yes, schools also have they run a curriculum that some do the British curriculum, this and that. They mix it with the Nigerian. Some come up with the with the one that okay, they create their own particular thing, and various other things like that. But the quality of what a school is delivering, I always tell people, it depends on how well their teachers are trained. That is why you must, as a parent, try to attend open days. Try to be there when the school is doing something. You will be able to assess things yourself. Don't forget that this is a place where your child will be from maybe 7:30 a.m. till around 4 in the afternoon before they go home. The better part of their waking hours spent in school. So why should you not be concerned about the kind of people that your children will be interacting with during those times? So you need to know. You can always make your judgment. You can always come to that decision. It's difficult for me to say that. Can you still hear me? I can see. It's difficult for me to say whether a school is good or if the school is bad at this time. But you need to be present there so that you will understand what is happening. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Mrs. Yinka. As we draw to the end of this webinar, I'd like to call on Damilola Hassan for her round of address. Okay, Damilola, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ifunaya. Thank you, Mrs. Yinka Ogunde. I believe it's the last 1.5 hours has been time well spent. We have addressed the pertinent issue of securing our children's education journey, with an education trust. But beyond all of what we've said, it's important that we make up our minds, to do something. So many things have been said today, even about you planning your estate and being intentional about your outcomes. Okay, so as I'm rounding up now, I'm seeing a question. If someone is protesting that this question has not been answered.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I'll just answer that right away. Your question on maintenance, upkeep cost about the children under an education trust. Thank you for protesting. Now I'm forced to see your question. So strictly speaking, we advise that the education trust be for the primary purpose of education, but we also understand that clients also have other diverse needs. So beyond you having an education trust, you can have a living trust that takes care of other aspects of life. So you have assets and you want to pass on those assets to your loved ones in a certain manner. You don't want them to access all of the assets at once because, of course, we know how it is with trust fund babies and the fact that when they have access to a lot of funds too early in life, it can be misused and all. So we can put measures in place to specify what assets you have, what you want the trustees to do with the income from those assets. How do you want us to distribute to your beneficiaries and up until what age? So we have clients who have specified that hold on to these assets, distribute income until my last born is 25, for example, or until my last born graduates from the university, or there's even a particular client, that the instruction was until my only child gets a master's degree, in any of the blah, 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 blah. That is until then that the child can now then access what is left of the fund. So we can always specify that. So, but specifically to your question on maintenance and all, if you insist that you don't want that left to anybody's discretion, yes, we can factor that into the trust deeds that we have for the education trust. So it means that you'll be instructing us that beyond taking care of the fees directly to the school, you also want XYZ as upkeep to be paid to so and so for the benefit of the child every quarter or whatever it is. So we can always put that into it. But beyond that, there's also the elaborate plan that you can have that can cover other aspects of life, your business, your assets and all of that. Thank you. So back to my rounding up. Any more protests? Okay, I think we're good. Yes, so thank you all very much for your time. An hour and a half, of your busy schedule is a lot. We value it. We appreciate it. A lot of people have joined from the very beginning and have stayed up until the end. I just want to encourage us to make a decision to start, get started. It really doesn't matter what level you are now, just do something. You can always improve on what you're doing. You can build up on it. Where what you desire is not available, you can start from what is available so that you can hit that desired outcome. So like the popular Chinese proverb that I like to make reference to, it talks about the best time to plant a bamboo tree, was 20 years ago. And then the second best time is now. So please take that decision, click on that link, fill that form, send us an email, and let's get you started in this journey. Thank you very much, everyone. And thank you again, Mrs. Yinka Ogunde. I'm sure we would have more opportunities in the future to collaborate and do a lot more in providing education, to people so that people are better informed and they can make the right decisions at the right time. Thank you all very much once again.
All right, thank you very much, Damilola, for the beautiful round of address. Thank you very much, Mrs. Yinka. I don't know if you have any last words for our attendees before they go, Mrs. Yinka.
Well, thanks a lot, Damilola, Ifunaya, Bofolusho, and the entire Meristem Securities team for putting this together. Like I said earlier, this is a conversation that I wish was available when my own children were very, very young. It will have saved us a lot of headache. And I'm sure that by now we will still have one kind of nest egg that we're saying that, okay, let's use this for grandchildren. Let's convert it, let's translate it. So just start something now, no matter how small. It certainly helps so that there's just peace around you and you feel that everything, you sort of tidied up loose ends and you're not just leaving things to the vagaries of life, because life always happens. There is a huge gap between the chalkboard and the boardroom. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Yinka. Indeed, there's a huge gap between the chalkboard and the boardroom, and it is best to slot in an education trust fund in between to ensure that your children definitely get to the boardroom. And a popular quote from Nelson Mandela says that education is the greatest weapon which you can use to change the world. So we have said enough today. We expect you to take action. Please check the chat box. Our form is still there for you to fill. Give us your contact details so that we can reach out to you to start today. Delay no more. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Damilola. Thank you, Mrs. Yinka. And thank you to our lovely attendees. We are glad to have you. Have a beautiful rest of the day. And we are waiting for you to fill that form. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.